What's up, everyone? It's Edward Checkle here from Barstarzz, and today I have a special guest, Kavadlo. You're now listening to the Barstarzz Podcast, where we explore health, longevity, and performance. I'm your host, Edward Checkle, and we'll be diving deeper into topics I've been studying for the last 10 years as a calisthenics expert. What's up, everyone? It's Edward Checkle here from Barstarzz, and today I have a special guest, Kavadlo.
Hey, you said my name right, Ed.
I've been practicing on that.
I appreciate that.
Before the podcast started. So if you're familiar with Al, or if you're not, he's a multi-best-selling author, a personal trainer out of here in New York, and he travels doing workshops on calisthenics for the Progressive Calisthenics certification.
Yes, sir.
All right, Al, welcome to the podcast.
It's my absolute pleasure to be here today. Thanks for having me, Ed.
So tell us how you got into calisthenics.
Man, when I was a kid, I grew up in Brooklyn, and Brooklyn back then was a little rougher than it is now. And basically, I was a skinny kid, and I didn't want to get my ass kicked. So I wanted to put on some muscle, and I was too young to join a gym, and I didn't have any weights. So I started doing push-ups, and I asked my parents to get me a doorway pull-up bar for my 13th birthday. And that was sort of how my calisthenics journey got started. You know, at the time, I never thought of it as anything that could turn into a career. It was just something I was doing just for fun and just, like I said, to put on some muscle, so I hopefully wouldn't get picked on by bullies or anything.
Why did you choose a pull-up bar as opposed to like a dumbbell or something?
It just called out to me for whatever reason. I think I had seen Terminator 2 recently. I think that came out right around when I turned 13. And there's that famous scene with Linda Hamilton doing all those chin-ups, and she was like a badass, and I was like, oh, I'll do chin-ups. I'll get jacked. And there probably were other places that I'd seen it too, but I guess that was my first exposure. But I did get into weight training pretty soon after that when I got to high school because, like I said, I was kind of a unathletic, skinny kid. And when I found out freshman year that I could take weight training for gym class, I was like, great, I don't have to worry about playing sports now. So I got into weight training and I took to that. And eventually, years later, I became a personal trainer. And that was when I first got exposed to some of the more advanced calisthenic stuff, you know, because like a lot of people, I think the only calisthenics I was really aware of was like push-ups, pull-ups, maybe dips, body weight squats, things like that. But I remember seeing someone do a one-legged pistol squat when I was a brand new trainer and thinking to myself, whoa, that looks really cool. I want to try that. And also like tremendously underestimating how hard it would be. So I thought, you know, I did like calisthenics mathematics and I said, well, I can put a weight on my back and barbell squat on two legs with more than my body weight. So if I pick up a foot and I don't have a bar on my back, well, it's the same thing. And of course, I was wrong and I was intrigued by that and I wanted to get it. And then little by little, it wasn't like I woke up one day and was like, I'm going to be a calisthenics guy now. It was just little by little. I remember seeing a muscle up a couple of years after that and sort of having a similar thought. Like, I can do pull-ups, I can do dips, so this is going to be a cinch. And of course, I was wrong about that, so I, had to work at it to get it. And then seeing the human flag, and that one I knew right away. I was like, all right, that looks badass, and I probably can't do it yet, but I wanted to learn it. And just little by little, new things came into my routine, and other things moved out. And one day it was like, sometimes I say I don't know if I chose calisthenics or if calisthenics chose me.
That's a good way to put it. I think it was like that for me too. So I started with a lot of pull-ups as a warm-up to the weight routine.
Yeah.
And then after a while, just like so much calisthenic movements found their way into my routine that I didn't really have time to.
Right. There's only so many hours in the day you can train. Yeah. Right. You got to rest and recover. So if you're doing all these different skills and you want to lift weights and you want to train to run a marathon and all these other things, it's just you're not going to get anywhere with any of them.
True. So you teach a lot of different skills on your books and on your workshops.
Yes.
What do you feel is the best method to learn a specific skill?
Well, it's different for different people because something I've found teaching workshops and working with a lot of people one-on-one is everybody's bringing a different history to the table. So some people maybe have the strength to do some of these things, but they're really tight and that could be holding them back. Other people are not strong enough, but maybe they have other things that they're good at. Maybe they have better balance than somebody else. So it's so individualized that it's hard to say. And that's part of what you find as a trainer is you have to work with a lot of people so you learn a lot of different approaches, because what worked for one person, you might give the next person that same cue and it doesn't work for them or it isn't appropriate for them. You might tell one person, okay, you need to think more about, engaging your abs. And you might, for another person, they're engaging their abs, but they need to think about some other aspect of it instead.
What does it look like when you first get a client, like that first session?
I'm really lucky nowadays because a lot of the people who I work with for the first time are people who are into calisthenics, and they've sought me out specifically because they want help with, a pistol squat or a muscle up or a human flag. And maybe they've been practicing it on their own, but they just need a little bit of cueing because some of the subtleties have eluded them. And those people are great to train because they know exactly what they want to do. And I can work with them specifically on those things. But then other clients come to me just for general fitness. Maybe they're friends with somebody who's been working with me and they notice this person's looking leaner and feeling better and getting stronger and they've got referred to me. And they're not necessarily looking to do a muscle up or to learn a pistol squat or a handstand. So with someone like that, it's a little bit of a different approach. But either way, what I want to do in the beginning with somebody who's new is assess them. And it doesn't have to be a really formal assessment. Basically, I just have them do some basic stuff and watch them move. And you can tell a lot just by having somebody do something like touch their toes or attempt to touch their toes, because some people can't, or do a basic squat, or just hang from a pull-up bar, or do a plank, or do a push-up. And then I can assess if people are able to do those basics well. I can try giving them more and more challenging things. And if those basics are already hard for them, then I'll jump in, I'll start cueing them right there. And that sort of leads right into the session.
What frequency would you recommend for a specific skill? Let's say for someone who's of average fitness level, they might have done some fitness in the past. They're, could do like 5 to 10 pull-ups and they want to learn, let's say, the muscle up.
I feel like 3 training sessions a week is a good minimum to aim for, because it's enough that you can make progress and it's realistic for most people. You and me, we love to work out. It's hard to only work out 3 days a week because you like it. You want to work out 5-6 days a week. So for people like us, sometimes it's good to do a split routine. But for a lot of people, you got to just do a full body workout every time you train because you might not have the frequency to do it. But that said, people who can train more often, you certainly can benefit from that. But yeah, as far as how long it takes to learn these skills, I hate to put a timeline on things, like a general timeline, because it's so different for different people. Some people, like we were saying before, depending on their previous training background. You said someone who has 5 to 10 pull-ups. I've taught someone to muscle up in 15 minutes, and I've had other people who we work on it for months and months and months before they finally get it.
For people that took that long, what was it you felt was the factor that was holding them back? Was it strength?
Sometimes it's psychological. A lot of these moves, people psych themselves out. And other times it's just technical. I found sometimes specifically with the muscle up, I work with people who've done hundreds and thousands of pull-ups over the years. So that movement pattern is so ingrained into their neurology that the muscle up feels different and the movement pattern is a little different. And they just can't get out of the whole like driving your elbows into your ribs sort of thing that you do for a pull-up. But for a muscle up, you have to kind of get your elbows behind your body a little bit more. And sometimes I can explain that to someone. They can get it intellectually, but when they go to do the rep, they keep doing the other thing. So you just got to be patient with people and try different ways of cueing them. If you give someone a cue 3 or 4 times and they're still not getting it, try a different cue.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, I've definitely seen people that they just have problem with the motions, but they're definitely strong enough. They're doing like pull-ups to their chest, but they really get the curve that you need to do a muscle up.
Yeah, a lot of calisthenic stuff, obviously there's a strength component to it, but then there's also a technical component to it. And that's why sometimes people, when you just watch a muscle up or you watch some of these skills, you see it on YouTube, some of the subtleties of the technique get lost on you and you don't realize exactly what's happening until someone really breaks it down for you. And that's why it's so great to have a trainer or to have an in-person thing, because as much as you can learn a lot from YouTube, and I've learned a lot from YouTube, and I'm sure people who've watched your stuff have learned a lot, there's just something about working with someone in person that you can have that dialogue that you can't have
I agree fully. Like on YouTube and the internet gives you a very general answer, and
Yeah.
some people could work with that.
Yeah.
But some people do need a very specific,
Yeah.
this is what you need to do.
Yeah. And sometimes they just need me standing there and giving them the encouragement, or if not me, someone standing there. Something that I've really tried to do over the years is demystify some of this stuff for people. Because I think it's easy for someone to look at something like a human flag and be like, oh my God, I'll never get that. That looks so crazy. I can't believe that's even possible. But what I like to do is be like, hey, or hey, as I like to say, is me, Al. I'm just a regular guy like you. You know, I don't look like a bodybuilder. I'm not taking steroids. I'm 40 fucking years old. And look, I'm going to pop one up and I'm going to smile while I do it. So if I can do that, you can at least try and do some sort of modification on this. And sometimes that's all people need to see, is they just need to be with you face to face and see you do it. And it's like, holy shit, this guy just did it. And they get fired up.
Yeah, I feel like I made a YouTube video about it before, that people put these moves on a pedestal so they never feel like they're strong enough. They're like, I can never do the muscle up because it's so grand.
Yeah.
But really, like, it's if you fully apply yourself and you unlock the mental barrier, it becomes a lot easier than what you think it is.
And that, I think, applies to things outside of calisthenics too. Once you start gaining that confidence, maybe you'll ask your boss for that raise that you didn't have the balls to earlier. Maybe you'll go up and approach that pretty girl who you were too timid to talk to before. And I love seeing that when I work with people. That not just do they get physically stronger, but they start to believe in themselves more just across the board.
That's so true. I've seen it with multiple people too.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So Al, what does your personal workout routine look like now?
Well, these days I'm actually training a little bit less than I used to. I got a 14-month-old baby, and when she came along, suddenly I had a lot less free time. So I do usually like 2 pretty long, intense sessions each week, and then I just try to sprinkle in a little bit whatever else here and there when I can. You know, at home, it's great because I can always practice push-ups and handstands and things like that. And my little girl actually gets a kick out of it. She doesn't really know it's a workout. And sometimes she wants to join in the fun a little bit, which is great. And I'm hoping I can continue to ride that out for a while and get her into doing strength training just because it's fun and because it looks cool. But yeah, other than those 2 intense workouts that I make sure to do every week, maybe I'll do 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. I busted out my ab wheel yesterday because it was raining. And I just did,
the best ab exercise.
Right? My abs are sore today. I just did like about 20 rollouts just throughout the course of the morning. And I woke up this morning, my abs are on fire. I was doing my pull-ups this morning and all I was feeling was my abs.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not like I have a really strict set routine that I follow. A lot of it is, just kind of fitting it in around my day to day. And I think it's important for people to get that because so many people think, I got to know exactly what I'm doing. I got to have a super structured plan. And it's great to have a plan. But you got to be prepared to be spontaneous and deviate from that plan too. People think if they can't stick to the plan exactly as they planned it, that just throw the whole thing out the window and eat a whole cake instead or whatever.
I get nice long sessions pretty regularly, but when I'm at home, I still like kind of kick up into plans whenever I have some type of like random 5-minute schedule where I'm free.
Yeah.
So I definitely believe in like these little workouts throughout the day.
Yeah, sometimes inspiration hits you at an unexpected moment and go with it when that happens.
Or if I'm sitting down for too long, I just get up and do like a set of jumping jacks.
Absolutely. I do everything on foot or by train or by bicycle. I don't have a car. I live in Brooklyn. I come into Manhattan a few times a week to train people and do other things like this podcast. And I always either walk, if I'm taking the train, I got to walk from the train or to the train, or I ride my bicycle. So I get a lot of extra physical activity like that. But I don't even count that as part of my workout. That's just extra activity. I have, clients that I ask them, if I see them once a week, I'll say, oh, so did you work out since I last saw you? And they say, oh yeah, I walked. I'm like, no, that doesn't count. Of course you walk. It's New York City, but you actually also need to get a workout. So walking is a great form of exercise and people should do more of it. But just walking, I don't think that's going to quite cut it. Yeah. Certainly not if you want to get strong, not if you want to do pull-up.
Exactly. What do your 2 workout routines look like? Just walk us through like.
I do full body. So I'm kind of at a unique place in my training because I'm 40 years old. I got a little girl and I am not really trying to get stronger right now. I'm sort of in maintenance mode. So I've acquired a lot of skills over the years. And, this goes back to something we were talking about earlier about how sometimes people want to do too much too soon. And the way that I've acquired a lot of skills, and anytime you meet anyone or see anyone who can do a lot of different things, it took a long time to get that. And little by little, like I said, I was doing pull-ups and push-ups since I was a kid, and then I got into weights, and then I discovered a pistol squat, and then I discovered a muscle-up, and little by little, okay, now I'm working the human flag. Now what's this elbow lever thing? And over the course of, I'm been working out for 27 years now, I've acquired a lot of different skills, and I don't want to lose them. So that's my main goal now. I'm sure there will come a point in my training where I'm able to devote more time towards progressing again, getting stronger, unlocking new things. But right now, I just don't want to ruin what I built because I worked really hard to get here.
Yeah. For me, it's frustrating. Like a move like the front lever, if I don't practice it very
it goes
specifically,
away.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah,
it's gone, but it's so gone that it's like months to even get back to that point I was just at.
As someone who people come to for calisthenics guidance, I need to stay sharp on these skills because if people are going to expect me to coach them on them, I need to be doing them myself. So it's sort of like one of those things where now I've found myself in a situation where I have to stay good at this stuff or I'm not going to be as viable career-wise anymore. And yeah, it's cool. I'm lucky to be able to do that, but I gotta stay on my game.
So the session you have is practicing the skills.
It might change. There are certainly times, you guys are probably familiar with the concept of periodization, which means at different times you're doing different things. So I've gone through periods where I was just focused on doing lots of reps of basics. And I kind of seasonally shift a little bit. I'm sort of starting to get more toward that. I feel like in the winter and the fall, I'm more just getting my reps in. And then in the spring and the summer, I'm playing around a little bit more. And that's not to say I'm not working skills during the winter and that I'm not ever doing reps during the summer. I like to use the analogy of like cooking. If you're a good chef, you don't need a recipe. You just go into the kitchen, you see what's there, and you make something to eat. And that's sort of where I'm getting to with my training. But other people, you're not a great cook. It's like you got to know exactly how much of every ingredient to put in there or you're going to mess it up.
What does your personal diet look like?
Again, there are certain broad strokes I try to follow, but it changes a lot day to day. I usually don't eat much for breakfast. I'll have a cup of coffee, maybe a piece of fruit, but generally I try not to eat in the morning. Usually have a pretty light lunch, and then dinner is when I, go to town, have a big meal. But again, my going to town, maybe for someone who has worse eating habits, would be their healthy meal. So if I, have a piece of steak and some rice and some veggies and some wine for dinner, for me, that's being somewhat decadent.
Yeah.
But for someone who's used to going to McDonald's and washing it down with a Dairy Queen afterward, that would be, I'm eating healthy now. But generally, I try to avoid fast food. I try to avoid excessive junk food. Not that I don't ever have a treat. I love a piece of cake or a cookie or an ice cream as much as the next guy, but you can't have every single piece of cake that you want or it starts to add up. And I find that by not giving in to those urges every time I have them, I enjoy those things more when I do give myself the opportunity to indulge.
I agree with that, yeah. I remember when I used to eat junk food almost every day.
You get numb to it.
Yeah, it wasn't special. But now when I have it, it's like, oh,
yeah, you taste it more. Sweet stuff tastes sweeter to you when you're not used to eating it all the time.
Yeah, very true. You had a really good one-arm pull-up. I think that's the first video I've seen of you.
Why, thank you.
A couple years ago, maybe a decade ago at this point.
Yeah, we're getting old, Dad.
So I'm curious, how did you get good at it, and how did you avoid injury? So right now, my elbow goes crazy. I was able to do it when I was lighter. But for like the last 6 years, I can't. Even training for it, maybe after like 2 practice, my elbow is like flared.
Well, first thing is you nailed it. You have to be lean to not put too much pressure on your joint for a move like that. But beyond that, I have messed myself up over the years getting too, aggressive with training that move. So don't assume that just because you saw me do it on YouTube a couple of times that I've never had tendonitis or I've always been able to do it every time I want. But it's definitely a bit of an elusive move, sort of a fringe exercise, and it's come and gone over the years. But as far as training for it goes, the first thing I always tell people is you got to get really good at 2-arm pull-ups first. If you don't have at least 15, ideally closer to 22 arms, don't even start messing with that 1-armer because you're asking for trouble. But that said, if you can do 20 pull-ups, you start just practicing, the same stuff that I would have a beginner who couldn't do a 2-arm pull-up. What would I have them do? I'd have them try flex hang with 2 arms. Well, we work the flex hang with 1 arm. Maybe I'd have them just, do a dead hang with 2 arms. Well, we do the dead hang with 1 arm. And when we practice that negative, lowering from that flexed hang into that negative. But the thing with that move is you've got to ease into it very gradually. And it's one of those things that most people, myself included, you get overzealous because you really want to nail it, and it becomes an obsession. You start setting goals for yourself like, I'm going to hit it by the end of the year. And then, it's not coming along as quickly as you wanted it to. So you think, I got to up my volume. So then you up your volume and then you hurt your elbow and then you got to back off completely. So it's one that I've learned to really respect and be patient with, because it can be taxing on the shoulder and the elbow.
When you trained it, how often would you train it? Daily? Every other day?
Well, when I started working on the 1-arm pull-up, I was in my late 20s, and I was able to recover a little bit better then than I can now at 40. And I think that said, I still got carried away with it then. I think realistically, and now I only work on it about maybe once or twice a week. And realistically, I think that's kind of the ideal amount. 2 times a week, maybe 3. Like I said, if you're young, if you're in your teens and 20s and you're recovering well and you're getting enough sleep and your nutrition is on point and all that. But really, you got to listen to your body, because when you wake up and you have that workout scheduled in your mind, and you're like, you know what? My elbow feels a little funky. That's when you got to say, you know what? Let me do something else. Let me not work on that 1-arm pull-up today. But it's so tempting to say, I'm just going to push through it and do it anyway, because you have your sights set on that goal. So everyone's got to find out for themselves. I always say you can't tell anybody anything. I tell people all the time, advice is something that's easier to give than to take. So sometimes people got to learn for themselves through their own trials and errors. That's how I learned.
I know you used to be really into yoga. Do you still?
Yeah, I think yoga is a fantastic complement to the training that we do, the street workout calisthenics stuff. I mean, they're both just 2 styles of bodyweight training when you get down to it. The yoga has a little bit more emphasis on the mobility, flexibility component and the internal aspect of it, whereas calisthenics is a little more focused on the strength and the external show-offy side of it. And I think that there's room for both of those things, and they complement each other well. And what I love about yoga, well, it's something I love about calisthenics too, is when you're new to it, it makes you aware of so many holes in your game. Things that you think, I should be able to do that, and you try to do it, and it's like, holy shit. That looked easy, but it's fucking hard.
Yeah. So do you still do yoga yourself?
I do. I try to get to a yoga class as often as I can, which lately has only been about, 1 or 2 a month. I do a little bit at home here and there. A lot of the time when I wake up in the morning, if I'm up before my wife and my kid, which I usually try to be, I can get a little yoga in. Sometimes I'll do some push-ups or, get a little full workout in, depending on how much time I have. But so much of my stuff now is just trying to fit it in whenever I can. It's hard to have a lot of structure in my life other than trying to be there for my kid. That's really my main thing these days.
Yeah. What's most important?
That's why people haven't seen me on YouTube as much lately also.
Do you still upload?
Not as much as I used to. No. I mean, it's also, you and I were talking about this a little bit before we started recording. Just when you put out as much content as you and I have over the years, you sometimes need to take a break because you feel like you've said everything that you have to say for a while, and you start to feel like you're being redundant or you're forcing it in some way. So I'm kind of at a point right now where I'm more interested in the people I'm working with in person and focusing my energy on that. And all the stuff that's online, that's not going anywhere. My YouTube videos, people still find them through searches. People still Google whatever, muscle up or pistol squat progression, and come across my articles on those things. People still buy my books. But I'm not so actively devoted to making new content right now because I got like over 300 YouTube videos. I've written hundreds of articles. I got 8 books. I got an app. I've got an online video program. It's like, it's out there already.
Yeah. If anyone puts the effort in, they'll find it.
But at the same time, there's a part of me that feels like you got to stay current. And if you don't keep putting out new content, people will forget you because there's just so much media out there.
I agree with that too.
It used to be, I remember the early days of social media. All you had to do was put out good content and you would get noticed because there wasn't a tremendous amount of competition. But now good content is just one little piece of the puzzle. You got to have cool graphics. You got to have good editing. You got to have good marketing. You've got to have all these other things that, the internet used to be like an alternative to mainstream media. And that's why people like us were able to find an audience, because what we were doing back then was, the opposite of what mainstream was telling you. But now it's a weird thing because the internet is mainstream media, and there's still a part of it that is an alternative. And if you're looking for things, hopefully you can find them. But I think there's probably more people, watching Netflix and YouTube and Spotify and Hulu than there are watching like NBC and regular TV now. It's a fucking weird time.
Yeah, I think you're right too. And it influences the TV now. If you
It does. TV is trying to be like the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they'll feature some of the stars and the topics, and I think almost every day the nightly broadcast has like a topic based on social media.
There are actors who are on hit TV shows who are more concerned about their Instagram post than the TV show that they're on.
Yeah. I can see that. All right, Al. What would be some last question? What would be some advice that you'll give someone who wants to live healthier that's not so common?
Oh, I don't know how common this is or isn't, but I think it's obvious, but a lot of people are oblivious to it anyway. And there's a lot of things like that in life. Until you point it out to somebody, it's hard to see it. But I think the best thing you can do for your health and your fitness is make the right decision in the moment. People are so caught up on goals and long-term plans, but each little decision you make day to day adds up. And that's how the long term unfolds. So rather than thinking about the next 30 days or the next month or the next week, think about right now. Think about today. Think about the meal you're about to eat. Think about the actions you're about to take. Is there a better thing that you could be eating? Is there something physically that you are neglecting that you could stop neglecting? Can you fit in that 15-minute workout today instead of tomorrow? And I think if people make the effort, little by little, change takes place and it adds up.
That was very well said.
Why, thank you. I've given that message and that speech to people before, and then they come back to me and they say, but can't you just give me a 30-day program and tell me what to do? And that's why I started selling my 30-day program online.
Nice, perfect. Where can people find more about you?
They can Google me. If they're able to spell my name correctly, Kavadlo. That's the great thing about having a name that's hard to spell, is there's no one else out there named Al Kavadlo. So if they can remember it, then they'll find all sorts of content. They'll find my articles, and then if they want to dig deeper, they can get my books and my other stuff.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hey. It's been a pleasure.